Media Network proudly presents a weekly exploration of various spiritual practices with renowned spiritual authors, coaches, teachers, and Dr. Tracy Brown, RScP.
And now, here's Tracy.
Hey everybody, welcome to Poetry, Prayer, and Practice. It is the first week of a brand spanking new year. Spanking new. Sometimes I wonder where we get these different phrases that we use. Like, right? What does that mean anyway? But here we are. It is the first week of January in the calendar year 2024. And I just want to begin this year really being grounded. Now, if you're like me, during the last few weeks of a calendar year, you invest quite a bit of time in reflecting on what's gone well and what you might want to change, and beginning to put some energy toward what you want the next year to be like. And I have done that, but now we're here in the new year. So I wanted to use our time today to really begin to ground what 2024 will be about. And so today is going to be kind of a mix of information and spiritual practice to help you jumpstart your 2024. If you have chosen a theme for the year, or if you have selected a word of the year, and you want to keep that in mind as we are going through today's time, that's great. If you have not identified any direction for the year, then maybe by the time we are complete today, you will have begun to see a pattern that encourages you to choose a word to focus on, or a word to guide you this year, or a theme for the year. There's a lot in social media I've noticed over the last 3 days of people sharing or asking others, what's your word for the year? And I was talking with someone over the weekend, and they were like, I don't know, everybody acts like they've always done this, but what are they talking about? So choosing a word for the year for some people is, this is the word I'm going to meditate, or this spiritual principle that I'm going to strive to incorporate into my everyday life. So you'll see people choosing words like surrender or faith or prayer. And it's just their word to really keep fully present in the front of their minds as they go through the year. Other people choose a word that is kind of a goal, and it may or may not be a spiritual practice. A few that I've seen this year popping up are, kind or kindness, which could be a spiritual practice. Or it could just be, I want to be a kind person. I've seen family a number of times. They want to put their focus on family, so that's their word for the year. And in doing so, they may employ many different spiritual practices, right? Love, forgiveness, compassion, as well as a lot of ways of being or things that they do. So it could be a priority, or it could be a spiritual practice or spiritual principle. I'm not one for a word of the year, although sometimes that happens. Usually for me, it's a theme for the year. What is my theme that is going to help me determine priorities? And so whatever works for you, And maybe you have something else that you do that is neither a theme nor a word for the year. And of course, some people set New Year's resolutions, a short list of actions they intend to take during the year. So my goal is not to actually lead you to a specific word or theme or resolution. My goal today is to simply guide you into some inner work that will then give you some direction about what you choose to do to establish your priorities for the year. And in that way, it's a little bit of a jump start. So let's begin in spiritual practice. Let's begin with a little reflection. And so I'm going to invite you to simply breathe with me. Yes. And find your center. And relax. And breathe. Lock the eyelid doors and shut out the wild dance of tempting scenes. Drop your mind into the bottomless well of your heart. Hold the mind on your heart that is bubbling with life-giving blood. Keep your attention tied to the heart until you feel its rhythmic beat. And with every heartbeat, feel the pulse of almighty life. Picture the same all-pervading life knocking at the heart door of millions of human beings and billions of other creatures. This heartthrob constantly, quietly announces the presence of life itself, the presence of an infinite power, the presence of intelligence beyond your physical expression or human knowing. This gentle beat of all-pervading life whispers to you, do not receive only a little flow of my life, but expand the opening. Expand, expand, and feel my power. Let me flood your blood, your body, your mind, your feelings, your soul. I am the throb of universal life. Take a breath. And let that sink in, because it is the truth of you, me, of all of life. And as we begin this year, I think it's important to remember that the start of each new year is really a time of hope, hope for excellence, hope that this year will be even better than last year. Hope. So I'm going to share with you from the words of Paramahansa Yogananda this reading as we jumpstart 2024. As we begin to think about finding hope. He writes, never lose hope. If you have given up hope of ever being happy, cheer up. Never lose hope. Your soul, being a reflection of the ever joyous spirit, is, in essence, happiness itself. If you keep the eyes of your concentration closed, you cannot see the sun of happiness burning within your bosom. But no matter how tightly you close the eyes of your attention, the fact nevertheless remains that the happiness rays are ever trying to pierce the closed doors of your mind. Open the windows of calmness, and you will find a sudden burst of the bright sun of joy within your very self. The joyous rays of the soul may be perceived if you interiorize your attention. These perceptions may be had by training your mind to enjoy the beautiful scenery of thoughts in the invisible, intangible kingdom within you. Do not search for happiness only in beautiful clothes, clean houses, delicious dinners, soft cushions, and luxuries. This will imprison your happiness behind the bars of externality, behind the bars of outwardness. Rather, in the airplane of your visualization, glide over the limitless empire of thoughts. There behold the mountain ranges of unbroken, lofty, spiritual aspirations for improving yourself and others. Glide over the deep valleys of universal sympathy. Fly over the geysers of enthusiasm, over the Niagara Falls of perpetual wisdom, plunging down the hoary crags of your soul's peace. Soar over the endless river of intuitive perception to the kingdom of omnipresence. There, in the mansion of bliss, drink from this fountain of whispering wisdom and quench the thirst of your desire. Dine with the fruits of divine love in the banquet hall of eternity. If you have made up your mind to find joy within yourself, sooner or later you shall find it. Seek it now, daily, by steady, deeper and deeper meditation within. Make a true effort to go within, and you will find there your longed for happiness. Never Lose Hope by Paramahansa Yogananda. And just feeling that reflection. Never lose hope. Look within. And there's no better time than the beginning of a new year to have hope, to really choose to be hopeful, and then to jumpstart or to jump into executing your life, your year, your day in a way that will bring you the happiness and the joy that you perceive or that you conceive. So, the idea for today really is to give you some food for thought, some questions to ask yourself, and we'll really do it as a spiritual practice. I'll ask a question and then quietly wait for 60 seconds or so for you to take that in. So if you're in a place where you could be journaling, or if there's a paper and pen nearby, or the memo notepad, note section on your phone, just in case something comes to mind and you want to capture it, that would be good. These are questions that I ask myself at least once a year, like as I'm ending the year and getting ready for the next year. I also tend to ask myself these questions around my birthday when I'm thinking about, for me, that's starting a new year. And so sometimes some of the questions really strike me, and other times different questions are like, oh yeah, that one. So I'm going to ask you about 15 questions, and I literally want you to practice them or to try them on and see if anything comes up for you that makes you think about how you want to live your life in 2024. So, the first question is this one. What are you most proud of about yourself? What are you most proud of about yourself? Next question. What wisdom would you share with your 16-year-old self? What wisdom would you share with the person you were when you were 16, but now you have wisdom? What wisdom would you share with your 16-year-old self? Next question. What talents or skills just seem to come naturally to you? Talents or skills that seem to come naturally to you. Next question. What do you like about the work you do now? Or if you're retired or not working, what did you like about the work that you did before you retired or were not working? What do you like? about the work you do or have done? Next question. What do you not like about the work you do now or the work that you have done? Next question. If you died in the next 24 hours, what would you regret that you haven't done yet? If you were to die in the next 24 hours, what would you regret that you have not yet done? Next question. If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you would absolutely do? If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you absolutely would do? If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you absolutely would do? And then take a breath. Next question. If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you would stop doing, avoid doing, or refuse to tolerate? If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you would stop doing, avoid doing, or refuse to tolerate? If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what would be 5 things you would stop doing or no longer tolerate? Take a breath. Next question. And remember, there are no wrong answers and there are no right answers. This is an opportunity to simply go within and check out some things that might help you define your priorities, define your boundaries, and jumpstart into making 2024 your most amazing year yet. So here's the next question. With what you know right now, what do you expect to be your most important purchase in the coming year? What do you expect to be your most important purchase or purchases in the coming year? What do you expect to be your most important purchases during the coming year? Take a breath. Next question. If money were not a factor, but you were still required to work 40 hours a week, what would be your ideal job? If money were not a factor and you were required to work 40 hours per week, what would be your ideal job? What duties, tasks, responsibilities, or maybe job title, what would be your ideal job if money were not a factor? If money were not a factor, what would your ideal job be if you were required to work 40 hours per week? Take a breath. We've got 3 more questions. The next question. What are you willing to stop doing so you can have a life you really love? What are you willing to stop doing that would empower you to have a life you really love? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to stop doing so you can have a life you truly love? What are you willing to stop doing so you can have a life you truly love? Take a breath. Next question. What adjectives would people who know you really well use to describe you? What 3 adjectives would people who know you really well use to describe you? What 3 adjectives would come up the most if people who knew you well, really well, were describing you? Take a breath. Next question. What's something you've wanted to do for years but haven't had the courage to do it? What's something you have really wanted to do for years but haven't been able to find the courage to do it? What's something that you've really wanted to do for years, but you simply haven't found the courage to do it? What's something you've wanted to do for years, but haven't had the courage to do it? Take a breath. And there's a bonus question here that I love to ask myself. So I don't know what will come up for you. Sometimes I get an immediate answer, and other times I get nothing. But I'm going to ask you to consider it and see if you get a response from your inner wisdom. Final question. Who have you come here to be in 2024? Who have you come here to be in 2024? Take a breath. And of course, I want to thank you for simply participating in this. It really is a spiritual practice to go within, right? To go within and seek what from the soul is wanting to be birthed, is wanting to be paid attention to. And so I'm just going to read through all of the questions so you can lock in what stands out for you. What are you most proud of about yourself? What wisdom would you share with your 16-year-old self? What talents or skills just come naturally to you? What do you like about the work you do? What do you not like about the work you do? If you died in the next 24 hours, what would you regret that you had not yet done? If you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you absolutely would make sure you did? Conversely, if you knew you only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things you would absolutely stop doing or no longer tolerate? What do you expect your most important purchases to be in this coming year? If money were not a factor, but you were still required to work 40 hours per week, what would be your ideal job? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to stop doing so you can have a life you completely and totally love? What adjectives would people who know you very well use most consistently to describe you? What's something you've wanted to do for a long time, but you haven't been able to find the courage to actually do it? And finally, who have you come here to be in 2024? There's no magic to these questions. They simply provide a way for us to dive deeper to our soul, to that which is seeking to express as us or through us. And often when I ask myself these questions, I recognize a pattern or I reignite a passion that I had buried because I was being practical or because I was trying to please other people. And as you start this year, the jump start is to identify just a few things that you really want to do or make space for or think more about or plan for. And then the second part of jump starting your year so that you can incorporate those desires or those changes is to translate them into no more than 4 key goals. I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions, but goals or intentions. One year for me, I realized that I would regret I would have a big regret if I died and I had not been to West Africa. And so I had been asking myself these questions leading up to my birthday. And going to West Africa came up as the answer in like 4 or 5 places. And especially the one of if I knew I only had 6 months to live, what are 5 things I would absolutely make sure I did? And one of them was go to West Africa. And so my goal, would have been, it wasn't a resolution to, I'm going to, go to West Africa at some point, or I'm going to save money to go to Africa. It was just a goal or an intention that before my next birthday, I will go to Africa. And then, so you set a goal and then you identify what spiritual practice you are going to use to reinforce that goal or to open the pathway for that goal or to manifest that goal. And so it might be that you are going to write an affirmation, like your spiritual practice may be writing an affirmation and then repeating that affirmation every day for the next 30 days. Or your spiritual practice might be to seek out a spiritual coach, a practitioner, a minister to help you shift a perspective and or to believe, to build a belief that you can achieve whatever your goal was. This is especially good when you are choosing a goal to maybe eliminate drama in your life, but you know you have relationships with people that seem to be the source of a lot of drama. And so you may need, your spiritual practice may be working with a practitioner or getting a coach who can help you integrate spiritual principle into how you handle that relationship, right? So you set a goal or intention, you clearly define specific spiritual practice, and then identify any additional or external resources that are required. So think about it. Setting a goal or an intention is internal. You are in complete control of that. Spiritual practice is working on the internal alignment that is required for you to achieve the goal. And you may get some help with that, but it is still focused on your internal alignment, your spiritual alignment with what it is you want to manifest. But the third part is identifying any external resources. So if I use my example of going to West Africa, there was a lot I had to do to believe I could actually afford to do it. There was a false belief that was holding me back, that I needed to wait until I was married, and the person I was married to and we would go together. It was something I wanted to share. And so I had beliefs that I needed to uncover and then change to a belief that I could go, that I could afford to go, that and that I could go by myself if I wanted to, or I could go with friends. That was all internal. But the third part of identifying any external resources that were critical to achieving that goal, in that example for me, I needed to identify 3 travel agencies that I felt I could trust and begin to work with and get more information. There were some external resources of learning, or a combination of me learning, but identifying external resources that would help me determine what part of West Africa I would go to specifically. And so you need all three. You need to, from the inside out, establish your goal, intention, the priority. Then you need to be really clear about how you're going to bring spiritual practice into that. And you are doing all of this in a physical universe. So there are likely, not always, but likely to be 1, 2, or 3 external resources that you need to know about, learn about, employ, or integrate. So when you do those 3 things, and again, with no more than 4 goals at a time, then you are ready to create an action plan. So from those 4 goals, the action plan that works, the simple action plan that works for me is a 90-day plan. And in those 90 days, what are 3 actions in each 30-day period for each month? What 3 actions will I take? What are the 3 expected outcomes? And most important, how will I celebrate progress? What 3 actions will I take? What are some expected outcomes that lead me toward my ultimate goal? And how will I celebrate? And please don't skip that celebrate part. Like, oh, well, when I do this, I'm going to celebrate by taking myself to lunch at my favorite restaurant. Or when I take this action and I get this outcome, I'm going to celebrate by having a virtual Zoom party with my 5 best friends, right? It doesn't have to be spending money. It could simply be that my way of celebrating is to call my spiritual coach and give feedback, share the demonstration with them, right? It could be that I simply add to my vision board. So, how you celebrate doesn't have to be complicated, but you do want to, when you set your action items moving toward your goal, you want to have some checkpoints in there where you are applauding yourself and being grateful for your own commitment to your own growth. So this is how I jumpstart my year every year. And because my birthday is also in the first quarter, I'm usually doing this process and answering these questions for both the new calendar year and for my birthday. But you can separate them and do the process more than once. This is the process that jumpstarts me. It gives me clarity. It helps me create a strategy, and it requires me to move into action. So clarity, strategy, and action will jumpstart you every time. I'm hoping that this is really helpful for you. And if you are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living, or if there is a CSL center near you, then that is one of the places that I highly recommend you can go to and identify a licensed practitioner who is also licensed as a spiritual coach. You can also simply on the internet, of course, you could Google for spiritual coach or licensed spiritual coach, because in addition to Centers for Spiritual Living, there are at least 3 other organizations that license people specifically as spiritual coaches. What you want to look for is not some is someone who can help you identify your spiritual beliefs and then integrate them into your life. When I'm working with clients, I say to them, or I'm meeting someone new, I say to them, my job is to help you integrate your personal priorities, professional priorities, financial priorities, and spiritual priorities. And a lot of times with traditional therapy, you can work on your personal life or your professional life, mostly personal, but spiritual isn't brought in unless you bring it in. And with a spiritual coach, they're trained to be able to help you identify how to integrate your spiritual beliefs and practices and principles into your life, both personal and professional, mental, emotional, physical, financial, spiritual. It's like we're trying to integrate all of that because so many people live their lives where they are. I go to work and I'm one person, and then I come home with my family, I'm a different person. And then I hang with my friends or my sorority fraternity or my community, and I'm a fourth, I'm a third person. And then I go to church, and that's a whole nother kind of environment or atmosphere. And if that works for you, that's great. But for me, I have found my life works much better when I'm able to integrate them. So, jumpstarting 2024, especially for our personal lives, this is one way to do it, and I hope that it's helpful. If you know other people who are getting into 2024 and looking for some grounding, feel free to share the link to the recording, and maybe it will help them as well. So I'm going to end today with a quote and a prayer / meditation. A lot of times when we start a new year, it feels like, well, it's true, the last year has ended. And it feels like kind of we're giving up, or maybe we're starting fresh. And it may feel a little hard. So I love this Jean Toomer quote. Life has brought to an end so many things. Evidently, it is demanding of me. Start again. Begin new things. Again, set to work to build your world. And so even for some people, a lot of things have ended and they're raw and maybe hurting and maybe confused. I love this quote in that situation because it's the reminder, start again, begin new things, get focused on where you're going. But even if you had a really great year in 2023, it is, as we begin 2024, a time to start again, begin new things, and be intentional about building a new world for yourself individually. And I want to close with the reminder that we all are responsible for building a new world collectively as well. This is a prayer for a united world. And again, today I am leaning into Paramahansa Yogananda. This is his prayer for a united world. May the heads of all countries and races be guided to understand that people of all nations are physically and spiritually one. Physically one because we are the descendants of common parents, the symbolic Adam and Eve, and spiritually one because we are the immortal children of our Creator, bound by external links of brotherhood. Let us pray in our hearts for a league of souls and a united world. Though we may seem divided by race, creed, color, class, or political prejudices, still, as children of the one source of life, we are able in our souls to feel brotherhood and world unity. May we work for a creation of a united world in which every nation shall be a useful part, guided by God through man's enlightened conscience. In our hearts, we can all learn to be free from hate and selfishness. Let us pray for harmony. Let us pray for harmony among the nations. Let us pray that all nations march hand in hand through the gate of a fair, new civilization. Let us make that prayer together. Let us all have a great 2024. We are jump starting into it. Let's make it fabulous individually and collectively. My name is Tracy Brown, and I am so glad that you joined me today for Poetry, Prayer, and Practice. I will see you again soon.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week. Or watch on demand at www.ntmedia.org or youtube.com/New Thought Media Network. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.